Hi all, this is DT Neil coming at you yet again with things in pop culture, storytelling, art, creativity, writing, etc., etc. It's kind of weird from my perspective. Again, this is a very Gen X perspective, so take that for what it's worth. I feel this really strange vibe, and I can't imagine I'm the only one thinking this, that we are in this really strange creative place where all of the classic forms of popular entertainment are all in crisis. You know, bands, popular bands, rock bands, they're still out there, but it's harder and harder for them to break even and any, or even come close, perhaps, or even get exposure. The movie industry is absolutely getting hammered. You know, the number of theater closings is massive. These huge budget efforts are going out there and just failing to deliver. Studios increasingly captive to Wall Street, who produce this very safe kind of fare, even on the blockbuster front, that doesn't deliver for audiences. And you see them staggering on things that they thought would be sure things, but they turn out not to be. And again, publishing, I always bring up publishing, of course, from my perspective, my writerly perspective, but the publishing industry has continued to suffer, you know, perennially challenged with the idea that they don't really know and still don't know what makes a hit, what drives a success story, how do they find that? And a lot of them, and I'm speaking specifically to publishers, a lot of them thought, oh, well, let's signpost, let's hit these particular groups, and that'll do it. That'll bring interest. But what that does is that while that energizes the groups that may be represented by those publications, that doesn't bring in more audience, because you still are dealing with this small percentage of people who read regularly and read voraciously. Of those readers, of that slice of people who are active readers, only a small percentage of them might be interested in a particular topic at any time. And so those publishers have to take it on the chin again and again and again, because they can't get that audience. And, you know, so music, movie makers, book publishers, magazines are I mean, if magazines are still around, I mean, some semblance of them may be still around, maybe, but not much. I mean, they are no longer in that cultural place that they occupied decades past. Television shows keep going. I think prestige television, such as it is, and people have done, you know, funeral rites for prestige TV for years. But in terms of the scalability, I think there's still those shows that are out there, but there are also a lot of junk shows and a lot of, I imagine, particular shows, they have real challenges with regard to that. And so it's funny for me because I think, well, what does that signify? Like, are people just jaded and they're bored and they're tired of seeing that stuff? Maybe there's a segment for whom they don't care. They'll just happily devour whatever new series there is, or whatever old series there is, or whatever kind of thing there is. But for a lot of people, I think there's a certain degree of exhaustion that has arisen. And it's either, and it's hard to know, it seems like it's such a huge phenomenon, it's hard to really know where it's coming from. You know, either there's a sameness to the stories that are permitted to be produced, which means, you know, from a particular perspective, one could say there are certain values that are promoted and put into the entertainment pool, but those leave a lot of other people out in the weeds, and so they don't get that interest. They don't reach those broader groups. It could also weirdly be there are so many entertainment options now that people are just kind of exhausted and worn out. They're spent. You know, in decades past, when you had fewer outlets for entertainment, and you know, you pick the decade on when particular things were thriving. They are all representative of times when that was the only option. Like when you think about the golden age of radio, right? There was a time, it's weird to think about in this country, when that was the big thing. Like you'd listen to your radio shows, and that was the big family thing. And then of course television came along, and that was the big thing. And then there was rock and roll, and that was the big thing, right? And there was 70s art movies and that was the big thing. And every time you hit that, and there was the golden age of novel writing, which was many decades ago, and that was the big thing. But it's funny because people get kind of bored or tired with the existing forms of entertainment, and then they're looking for something new. And now we've run into this situation where we've kind of hit all of those areas of entertainment. And so you have an audience that's well acquainted with all these forms of entertainment, and then they're kind of bored with everything that's out there. They're just sick of it. I mean, anybody who has, if you subscribe to a streaming service, I know any of you who've done this have probably felt those moments where you like click on it and you see hundreds of options, and you're like, don't care, click, don't care, don't care, don't care, click. Why am I paying for this? Click, 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 click. You get jaded. People get jaded. We have a wealth of choices and a rather marked decline in engagement and interest. And I think that's interesting. It's very human on some level. And I don't have an answer for it. I'm merely kind of speaking to it. It just feels so strange. Like it feels to me culturally, there is this kind of weary sigh from everyone going, and there are exceptions. There are shows and there are books and there are even bands out there that are still doing interesting work and can really, and you get those little brief moments of magic where people are like, this is really great. I'm really enjoying this. But there's so many things where it's just like, I don't care. Like I've actually done that where I look at something and I actually don't care about this. I've seen this before, done better by somebody else. Don't care. And I don't know if there's a cure for it. I don't know, like thinking about, I mean, and I'm in my 50s, okay, which is from a Gen X perspective, it's like, holy crap, I'm in my 50s. What the hell? How am I going to make it another, 20 to 30 years? How am I going to, like, what the hell am I going to do? Now, of course, for me, as a writer, I will write until I just won't ever run out of stories. I'll just keep writing. Even if nobody's reading them, I'll still do it for myself. But for like, if you don't have that outlet, like what the hell are we going to do to honestly, think about like in 10 years, barring some radical technological innovation, whether it's virtual reality or what the hell are people going to do to entertain themselves? There are going to be a lot of people who are just not particularly entertained. They're going to be kind of pissed off and unhappy and with no escape and no diversion. Not everybody, but because there will be some for whom those aspects, those old media will still entice. Like people who are diehard talk radio people, right? Who'd enjoy that, or podcast folk. Those people enjoy those things. But if you're not a willful aficionado of a particular entertainment medium, and you're just kind of looking for something to divert, and you just look at all this stuff in this, it's a wealth of choices, and yet it's also a poverty of options. There's a shortfall there, and I don't know what people are going to do. And again, I have my bias for reading. The one thing that I will say is a benefit for reading is it's just you and the book. Like there isn't intrusion from pop-up ads and notifications and interruptions. It's you. That's why I've always said it's like reading is a meditative act. It's like you pull, and I honestly, I willfully set aside time to read as a way of unplugging from the internet, because it's otherwise social media and all that. It's absolutely life sapping in a way. Yes, there's communication and there's outreach, and I'm doing this ironically. Like I'm doing this post, and I wouldn't be able to do that without a channel, social media channel. I get all that, but at the same time, personally, we are I think moving out of this area of like mass entertainment anymore, because it's too costly too much effort for too little payoff, perhaps. Creators are getting screwed. And now we've got this Orwellian monstrosity of these AI generators creating, spitting out art, spitting out books, spitting out these other things. And we'll have this point where we're going to have, synthetic or digitally rendered entertainers, like those shows that I've seen where, like, I haven't seen them, but I've seen stuff about them, of these holographic representations of performers going on tour, and you're watching a hologram. That's obscene. That's ridiculous to me. It's absolutely dystopian. So we'll see where we go, but it's really it's a weird place to be, and I think there are going to be a lot of people who are just starved for anything entertaining, and with nothing to divert them.